Station 9 Dave, WU7N.
Good evening, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I am Dave, KD7ZYM. The Western Washington Amateur Television Society is a group of radio amateurs that take to the airways with fast scan television. We have a repeater located up on Cougar Mountain. We transmit on 70 centimeters. It's a crossband repeater and spits out images at 1.2 gigahertz. So with that, with the net getting underway, I'll pause in case anybody has emergency traffic or needs to make a contact. So again, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM, and we'll take check-ins for the net now. So far we got WU7N James, and unfortunately we got Ron and Lee that are out this evening and doing other things. Is there anybody else that would like to check in?
7QO, I don't know if you could see me though, I couldn't see myself.
Try transmitting again, I was overriding you on video.
See something, but it looks like a P1/2 maybe.
You know, I find this repeater interesting at times. If the wind's blowing up there on top of the facility, I get about a P2 picture. When it's calm up there, I get like a P4 plus. This evening I seem to have a plus happening, so I never know. Last net, it was like a P, I'd say almost a P2 minus. So, N7QO and WU7N James. Again, is there anybody else who would like to check in? Okay, we'll get it underway. WU7N James.
To start off tonight's entertainment, I thought I would show you kind of an interesting Windows 10 error page. And I don't know if you can quite read that or not. Maybe I need to expand it a little bit more. I guess that's a little easier to read. Forgot to attach one network cable, which we're all very familiar with, you know, the famous RJ, I guess it's an RJ11, I'm not sure. But I forgot that, and so what comes up now is you're not connected, and the web isn't the same without you. Let's get you back online. Check that your network cables are plugged in, make sure that you're not in airplane mode, see if your wireless switch is turned on, restart your router. I've got something to show tonight. Apologies to anyone on the net tonight, but I really wanted to show it to Lee and Ron especially because they might actually know something about it. Found a whole tub of really interesting stuff in a house I'm cleaning out right now. So with that, this is WU7N. Let me turn it back to net.
Oh my, James. And tonight we do not have Ron and Lee, so anyway, good effort anyway to bring those items. Maybe we can review them ourselves and see what it is. So let's go to N7QO.
N7QO, thank you, Dave. Well, Jim, I could read the top line without any difficulty. The rest of them along the left side of the screen I could read, but they are bouncing around a little bit, so it takes me some time to read those, and I only got about half of them read. And what you had up on the right side of the screen I could not read at all. Well, but you moved that away. But anyway, I have significant snow where I am. That is impeding my ability to see what's going on. And also our repeater is not in its constant on mode, so that is a problem as well. Dave, as for the wind, yeah, we kind of know there were some problems there, antenna problems, and well, lots of things since the repeater got moved a couple years ago. But anyway, I can see both of you. I can't see myself. I could see a figure there, but it's almost worse than the Alfred Hitchcock thing. But anyway, good to see you both. Back to you, Dave, N7QO.
Dave, KD7ZYM, in Lake City. And, boy, for me today, Seattle ACS, the ham operators that assist the City Emergency Unit, the EOC, we had a first aid class, and that's classified as a mission, and it's given a mission number. And we met at North Seattle College this morning, and we went through many different scenarios of what to do for different things, from electrocutions, being struck by lightning, having a heart attack, burns from electrical shocks and high tension lines, to common heart attacks, to epilepsy, just about a general of everything. But the interesting thing was we had some sample defibrillators, and we got a chance to do CPR and learn to hook up the defibrillators to a heart attack victim while doing CPR. And I was surprised. They're saying that CPR now, generally you've lost the patient after 8 minutes of CPR, but getting a defibrillator hooked up, there's a good chance, about a 90% chance, you can retrieve the person that's undergoing a heart attack. So that was kind of interesting. Defibrillators, they had several for examples. Price range, top prime was about $1,600 to the low end to $979. So that was quite a price range that they had. And that's about all I can say for this point. So we'll go back up to James, WU7N.
That's amazing to me that they've got a defib unit with auto sense capability down to $979, but I wonder if you have to pay 10% tax on top of that. Anyway, I was kind of hoping when, the defibs were so expensive that China would come to our rescue once again and they'd be, $25 in no time, but it hasn't happened yet. I guess it's because it's of medical equipment. Before I get to the big red tub, as I call it, I just thought I'd point out that my 98008 forecast is stating that the temperature is going to get to around 31 degrees Sunday night, which means it's going to freeze. Just that's a kind of a freezing zone up on my hill. It just means everything is just going to be incredibly slick. So I might not be going anywhere early Monday morning. I might be staying put until the sun comes out a little bit. Anyway, this is what I call the big red tub. I'll show it here. How long we go on the net tonight, we'll see how it goes with the three of us on here. But it's model rocketry stuff, and one person pointed out to me there's a date in there that goes back to 1979. So I'm assuming this stuff is 40 years old. But there are more interesting things in the tub. So let me turn it back to net control. This is WU7N with the Western Washington Amateur Television Society. Back to you, Dave.
WU7N, and this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. I'll slightly pause in case there's anybody else that'd like to join our net on the 08 repeater. And hearing none, N7QO, Jim.
7QO. Well, let's see. CPR. I heard something that now they do not want anyone to do mouth-to-mouth. Verify that is what they've been telling you today. And let's see, AEDs. Yeah, Jim, I agree. I think everyone was expecting China to come to the rescue on that, but I don't know what happened. Maybe our government got involved. I shouldn't say that, but I don't know. Don't know what happened there. AEDs are certainly becoming more popular. You see them around in a variety of buildings, and they kind of, the ones that we have where I work are designed so that someone with virtually zero experience can use them and save someone. So the instructions are there, and the ones that we have talked to you as well. So I don't know. Don't have any idea about the cost, but I guess that's a useful thing for a lot of public buildings to have on hand anyway. Reset. Jim, I live on a hill as well, and frequently there are accidents at the bottom of my hill. There's a fellow who has a wooden fence, and every winter there are several cars that go down the hill and are unable to negotiate the turn at the bottom of the hill and go right through his fence. But as long as the road is dry, it's not like it's a problem. So I don't know. We did have some rain today. I think this morning everything was soaking wet when I got up. I can't say that I went out a little bit before dark, so I don't know if the roads have dried a little bit around here. But if tomorrow's a dry day, you might want to check and see before it gets dark tomorrow, see if the road is dry. If it is, it'll probably be safe to go down the hill. Otherwise, not. Interesting, at my property, reset. We used to have where along the side of the road it was gravel, it was just dirt, so as you go down it, you could put two wheels in the dirt and just ride the brakes on down. But someone, I presume the county, decided that they would help us and pave the whole thing. It was really nice for them to pave the roadway, but they ran the surface all the way to a vertical cliff, basically adjacent the road. So now you can't put your wheels into the gravel. So they inadvertently made it worse if the weather's bad like this. But oh well, good luck. I would say don't risk it if there's any doubt, Jim. That's my 2 cents. I can't afford any broken cars other than what I've got now. Back to you, Lake City Dave and 7QO. Oh, by the way, if either of you could come back and let me know if you see my picture or not, I'd appreciate that. Back to you, Lake City Dave and 7QO.
In 7QO, no, I'm not seeing your picture on RF, and I'm not seeing you on the internet, so don't know why. This is Dave, KD7ZYM. Let's see. At the first aid class today, we were discussing a device that's on the market. I don't know if I told you about it Wednesday or not. It looks like a cell phone with a little heftier antenna on it that's very similar to a satellite antenna for a phone. But this device is being sold also by Costco, and you can go on their site and just not Google, but type in satellite texting unit, and it'll come up and tell you that they're out of stock. They sell for about $400. They text both ways, send and receive. You have a telephone number, and then if you're transmitting out, you type in the telephone number that you want to contact. And it has a GPS unit also built into it, and that gives your coordinates where you're at. And also, it will trace your path of travel. That's kind of interesting on a map. I guess you need an app for that on your phone or on your computer. One of the guys using this uses extended motorcycle trips around the U.S. and mentioned that a lot of times there's a long distance between cell sites, and you can't get a message out even trying to text on your own phone. So this is good for that. Another thing, if you're a boater, you give your coordinates on that. And it has an emergency button on it also. So when you hit the emergency button, it automatically gives your coordinates out. Then wherever it receives the signal back, it will call the nearest emergency search and rescue or 911 and give them a detail of what's going on. You have an emergency, and your coordinates are transmitted out. So it's pretty neat. Units seem to sell for around $400, and the service is basically $20 a month. I don't know how many texts that has to it. I'm sure it's not unlimited texting. But that was kind of a neat device that's available on the market. And since it uses satellites, you can use it worldwide. And you can get a message out that way. No voice, but just texting. And let's see. Let's go back up to James, WW7N.
Technology question, since there's only three of us here, was that by the same people that made the spot transceiver?
Might have been, I don't know. There was Garmin had a version of this available too.
Interesting. I'm so glad to see Garmin is still in the fight. I recently got a couple of Garmin automotive GPSs and was able to resurrect a couple of them, and a couple of them I think are going to need new batteries. And the database on one of them I think is 7 years out of date. Well, anyway, I will tell you that an example, this gentleman apparently was, among many other interests, he was interested in model rocketry. How old this is. Again, I'm guessing 70s, but if you can imagine, a company today, it's called the Red Max, and as you can see, they have silhouettes on here, on the side of the rocket, an outhouse, a couple industrial buildings, a couple of jeeps, what look like two tanks, maybe a locomotive, and a palm tree. It says nicht stompen, which is some kind of strange perversion of German that I guess means don't stomp on it. And a little skull and crossbones with the helpful suggestions, something about for grabbing here at the top. I do remember these as a kid. I always wanted to get into this Estes rockets, which I guess were kind of I must have been looking at them in the late 60s, early 70s, and warehouse controlled the whole state, and they really didn't want you shooting off rockets that utilized this type of solid fuel motor because they were afraid that you were going to set their forests on fire. Father helpfully found an alternative, which, wait for it, it was supposed to be safer than this, and that was a liquid freon propellant. And I remember our first launch, we saw the rocket disappearing way, way up there in the cloud cover. It was bright, it was kind of a silver, and it was enough light you could see this little glimmer disappear, and we never found our rocket again. So, being the young person with great ideas that I was, I suggested to my father that for the next one we helpfully put our name, phone number, and address on there. But since I don't think my dad ever figured out what roof we poked a hole in, I don't think we ever went with that idea. Although, actually, amazingly, I think we did go with a second liquid freon-powered rocket. But I must say, it didn't have little skull and crossbones on the side of it. You know, I wanted to Ron and Lee to see this, because especially Lee with his physics background, I was wondering if he had comments on this or not. Other things to show next time around, if you guys are interested. WW7N, back to you.
WU7N, thank you with that. Let's go on to N7QO. Jim.
Well, I can see that I'm interfering with the repeater identifier there. Like I said, I could see about a P1/2 picture here at the house, but oh well. Yeah, I built a couple of model rockets way back when. It looks like someone went through significant effort to decorate that thing. I always made mine plain Jane. I never heard anything about the Freon propulsion system, but the Estes had a large selection of different engines, and some if you had multi-stage rockets as well. It was kind of pretty cool. I never got into anything sophisticated. It wasn't really worth mentioning, I don't think. But I'd be afraid to put my name and address on there for fear that if it came down and broke something, I'd get into trouble. Always tried to do it in a wide open field somewhere, and I never had any problems because what I built never went up all that high. But I have known of people who've built something that had a couple of different stages, and it traversed some distance. Of course, nowadays you can actually put a little GPS tracker in there if you wanted to. But when I was a young fellow, that equipment was not available. But that's pretty cool. Reset. Dave, I took a quickie look on the Costco website, and it looks like what you're talking about is actually a Garmin InReach, and it does say out of stock. And when I click for additional information, it says not found. I've heard of that, and yeah, the Spot. There are actually, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 things of which I'm aware, similar to that, intended for aviation emergency use as well. I have a couple of friends who have, I don't know if they have specifically the Garmin InReach, but they have similar devices. And that works pretty well, I guess. There's nothing that money cannot buy. Boy, I know a lot of people who would really love to have $400 to buy a ham radio rig, but this would be a deluxe thing for emergency services. It would certainly be useful, especially if our networks go down. If we lose cell towers and lose repeaters, everything reverts to HF. Got a question for you on that, Dave. Let me reset. Is there any sort of system to revert to HF communications locally if, for example, the repeaters are down? Just curious about that. Back to you, Dave, N7QO.
N7QO, yes, with the city emergency group of ham radio operators. They have a full array of HF equipment and a couple of remote sites that they can operate from the EOC. That's kind of interesting. Also, say if you're a member of the emergency groups within the county, there's a thing called FirstNet. It's a Verizon thing. And with your credentials as a radio operator, a ham radio operator, you get a priority on Verizon phones. You just have to register with them, and they give you a little chip, I guess, that goes into your camera, into your, not your camera, your phone. And what it does is it gives you priority over anybody on the air. Say you have a master disaster, or even if you're down at the baseball parks or the football stadiums where everybody has a cell phone going at once, sometimes you can not get a signal to dial outside. And with this FirstNet, it doesn't cost you anything. You just have to have your credentials by your emergency group. You fill out some paperwork, and then you have priority use on your Verizon phone wherever you're located that has a Verizon repeater site in the U.S. So that's kind of a neat thing. So if you got stuck somewhere and the phone service was all unbelievably crowded, all you have to do is call out and you get through. Anyway, that's what was with that. Getting back to the defibrillators, the history on them, Physio Control in Redmond was the originator of these devices, and 5 of their employees split off and actually started 5 other sites or companies distributing these devices. So anyway, it's a local product that got started here in the Seattle area. So with that, I got another thing with rockets. I don't know if you remember Nigel, K7NVN. K7NVN belonged to the University of Washington Rocket Club. And boy, they went down into New Mexico and he showed rockets. And they also used the video that we transmit on the 4 channels, and they attached that to their rockets, and that's how he got interested in ATV, utilizing the ATV frequencies that we have available. And he showed some of the video and some of the rocket things. And apparently, when he was at the university doing this, I think they came in second national-wise with whatever their goals were to achieve with these rockets from the University of Washington. So with that, move back up to WU7N, James.
Well, thank you, Dave. That sounds interesting. And to answer your question, Jim, I know Sunday night on the Aries Races Net I report into, they frequently ask the section people if they can monitor the 80-meter frequency and shout that frequency out. So I'm assuming that's supposed to be a near vertical incident skywave NVIS that they're depending on to use when everything else goes down. I noticed that the other thing that seems to be in vogue, other than model rockets these days, just looking at the internet here, is balloon launches. And I know they sometimes put a GPS tracker in the balloon, and sometimes also I've heard of putting amateur TV transmitters for video in balloons as well. And I know there was one they launched somewhere out in eastern Washington, and they think it came down on one of the islands out in Puget Sound, but I'm not sure if they ever recovered it. But just looking at the ever-helpful internet, I can see GeekWire's running a story here about two girls launching something, and there was, this is the one I was thinking of, the science experiment on a weather balloon that went up way, way up there. They really got some altitude out of that thing. And this is the one that caught my eye, something about launched an egg up into the stratosphere on a balloon. I know one of the contests at my university way back in the day, we had a bridge that crossed over a road, and the idea was with very limited materials, could you build something that could cushion an egg when you threw it off from several stories up and it would hit on the cement? Would the egg survive? And of course most of them didn't, but it was a good effort, and a lot was learned in the process of trying. Anyway, the other thing that I noticed in this bin of stuff, let me show it here. This one here really caught my eye because it had sort of these 1960s Big Bertha letters. It says it's a skill level of 1, and the actual device, as yours, is a plain cardboard tube, and it carefully warns you that glue and paint is not included in 2 languages. But several of these rocket kits were in this tub. Seem to be untouched, and I don't know how old they are. But it looks like Estes was a subsidiary of Damon, and I don't know if you can see that or not. D-A-M-O-N. But anyway, this is of interest to me because these aren't even opened, and I have no idea how old they are. A lot of statistics here, but I don't know if by the time you convert it to NTSC, if you can see that or not. But it says the length is 24 inches, diameter 1.6 inches roughly, weight 2.2 ounces, and it has recommended engines, which it's interesting. For the first flight, it says B6-2, and then it has AB3, B6-4, B4-2, C6-5, and I was wondering if Ron or Lee, especially Lee with his physics background, if he knew what those engine sizes meant or not. I guess that's an internet search. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting things in the little red tub here. I haven't even gone through it all yet, but another interesting thing. This right here, I don't know if that's coming through, but it says launching instructions for super shoot, and it says slip your kite line through eyes of the launch clip as shown here, and then slice halfway through the stopper cork, hold the cork over the kite line, and somehow open launch clip. And somehow, I think what's supposed to happen, according to the picture here, there was some kind of a parachute or something that would somehow fly up the kite line and then release with the hardware in it there. has a date on here of copyright 1980. So that dates that right there. So anyway, other interesting things in here. Back to you, Dave, WU7N.
WU7N, and this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. Well, Jim, N7QO, you're up.
Thank you, Dave, N7QO. Well, I'm not going to bother trying to send a picture now, since neither of you can see it anyway. Yeah, Jim, I'm sure I have an Estes catalog somewhere. I will probably die of old age before I find it. But it listed different series, and I don't remember exactly B's, C's, D's, whatever. Something was relating to whether or not they would ignite a second stage. Something would possibly pop to trigger a parachute. There was something about it seems to me the diameter of the engine, and then the power of the engine, how much gunpowder or whatever propellant was in there. I don't remember exactly all of those, but I'll bet if you did a search, probably under Estes, you could find that information. All of that rocket information is newer than anything with which I have dealt. But yeah, that's kind of cool. Reset. Was anyone else in there? Go ahead.
Yeah, W7WWI, just a question.
Gary?
I'm getting hold of Rick, and I haven't heard from him for a while. I wonder what's the status of the Tiger? Have they ever got it fixed yet?
No? Does anyone know?
Tiger seems to be working fine. I don't know what are you inquiring about?
For a month or so, I think it was involved in that fire they had up there. I'm not sure, but I'm just wondering if anything needs any money, or if they need to replace antennas or what.
This is KD7ZYM. I am unaware of that. I do know we're operating off Cougar at this point. I believe we're receiving and transmitting from Cougar.
And so, if anybody knows Rick's phone number, maybe you can either call him or someone, have him give me a call or so forth, so I can find out what the status is.
I'm going to make a contact for that. And again, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. N7QO, I guess you're up again.
Yeah, I'm looking for a phone number, Gary. I do not believe that I have it. If I find it, I'll have Rich give you a call. But I'm pretty sure I don't have it. Maybe Lee or someone has it. But anyway, the Cougar machine seems to be working just fine. Anything else, Gary? Go ahead.
Very much. I was curious because they may need some money for an antenna or parts or something, so I wanted to be on board with him to find out what we needed. Anyway, yeah, Cougar's doing not too bad. I found that I had a drop of water in my coax here the other day, and it was shorting out the signal. But I switched to a different antenna now, and I should be a pretty good signal now.
Your signal is about, I'd say, 95% full quieting.
That's good enough. Break in, and if anybody needs my number, I'll give it to you, and then you can just pass it on to Rick. He called me the other day, but he didn't leave his phone number.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you for inquiring.
Find the phone again, please.
For your concerns in calling to make a contact.
Now, let you get back to your net there. W7WWI, let me know.
Thank you. And back to Jim, N7QO. Anything else?
Yeah, Gary, I have your number, but I cannot find a number for Rich. So I don't know. I'm sure someone around here has it. I do not. But I don't know. Back to you, Dave, N7QO.
And this is Dave, KD7ZYM. I was going across the internet yesterday. It was kind of interesting. They had a thing on quadcopters, and they were showing some games people play with it. The standard quadcopter, they'd attach about 4 helium balloons on it, and somehow they were able to release that up about 100 feet or 200 feet. And then they'd take the quadcopters and try to chase the rising balloons and pop them. So that was kind of interesting. And another thing, they had I guess it wasn't a quadcopter. It had about 8 different propellers on it, and it was capable of lifting a basketball. And what they were doing was they'd go to a standard basketball hoop from about 50 feet above the hoop, and drop the basketball and try to sink it into the net, or the hoop itself. So that was kind of interesting. So that's about all I've got to say, so we can go back to James, WU7N.
Your transmitter is still on, Dave. Well, things have come a long ways. Balloons and GPS and video and quadcopters. That's interesting what you would say, what they're doing with the quadcopters, because I gets my imagination just to run wild. I saw an interesting experiment the other day where they were spinning a basketball or soccer ball or something off the edge of a huge, giant dam. And depending on whether you just threw the ball over the side or whether you put a big spin on it, of course, the aerodynamics of the ball caused it to go in a different path. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Here's something I thought I would show, too, here. Here is a 1979 model rocketry catalog, and I guess 40 years ago, the big deal. Remember this, somewhere around 1975 time frame, my neighbor was wealthy enough to get one of these where you had a 110 film cartridge, those little narrow film cartridges used in the Instamatic cameras, and you would put it on the rocket, and I'm afraid the photograph that they're showing here in the catalog, my neighbor never quite got photographs that good. Certainly gave me an appreciation later in life for the keyhole satellite system, which was in use for a very, very long time, and it would take photographs as it circled the Earth, and then jettison what they called buckets. And, these little spinning bullet-shaped things would, containing film, would re-enter the atmosphere, and they would get snatched out of the air. I believe it was by a helicopter with something that would grab them straight out of the air. And when they got I think it was the Air Force, got very, very good at grabbing the buckets of film as they were deorbited over the central U.S. and grabbing them and then processing the film to see what was going on the Earth below. I believe all the guts of the keyhole satellite system was made by the Land Corporation, same people who made Polaroids, and that always just amazed me that they would shoot this thing up and it would be just, of course, packed with these reels of film and these little, somehow, it just boggles my mind how it did this, but it would somehow take the pictures, roll the reel up, unload the camera, all of this, of course, done without microprocessors, and then somehow put it in the bucket and with a little tiny retro rocket, spin it, and then throw it outside the satellite. The retro rocket would fire, and the little bucket would deorbit, and then it would get snatched. To me, that is just incredible. Anyway, the other thing I noticed on this, 40 years ago, if you wanted this catalog, it cost you 50 cents, and that was probably quite a bit for a 12-year-old 40 years ago. There's lots more to show out of the red bucket if anybody's interested. Perhaps next time, if Lee and Ron are here, I'll show them some of this stuff, and they might actually recognize it or have more comments on it. This is WW7N. I see it's 48 minutes after the hour. This is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society, and I'm turning it back to Net Control. Dave, take it away.
Again, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. I'm Dave, KD7ZYM. So let's go to Jim, N7QO.
Thank you, Dave, N7QO. Well, that's pretty darn interesting there. I do not remember paying separately for an Estes catalog, but it's possible that I sent them like 2 quarters in an envelope or something. I don't know. It's been too many years, but never, like I said, never really got too much into that. Let's see, we were talking about balloons. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Nigel was actually more involved with balloons than model rocketry, but it seems to me there may have been some crossover there. I do remember him going somewhere and launching a balloon way up there into the stratosphere. And dropping eggs. I remember something on television about that. Yeah, I remember most of them not surviving, but interesting. Something I wouldn't have any idea about how to do other than buying a bunch of bubble wrap. Don't know what the rules of the game were, but I remember watching that on television sometime, some sort of contest. Back to you, Dave, N7QO.
N7QO, this is KD7ZYM. Another interesting thing with quadcopters, I don't know, I picked it up a couple of times on commercial television stations. I think it was Educational Channel 9. It had a thing on, and they have races, and they go through obstacle courses. And man, they're whizzing along at a high speed, going through hoops, doing things they have to go under and over and turn around quickly and come back, and it's just amazing at how fast they're moving. The pictures that I saw, the operators had goggles on them, and apparently they have a front view of the quadcopter, and then they use their controls to manipulate the quadcopter through the course, and it would be like a first-person view from the front of the quadcopter. And man, do they move out. So that's about all I got to say at this point. I'm kind of running out of words, so let's go up to James, WU7N.
This is WU7N. Looks like we have multiple video signals. I'm not sure if that's Jim or Dave. Well, this has been an interesting find for me. Kind of a blast from the past, even if it is a little dated. Here's one that caught my eye out of the bucket. It's called a Cadet, Eastie's Cadet. And the thing that's interesting about this one is this one looks in very good shape. Many of the rockets in the red tub are damaged, and they're missing a fin or something. Looks like maybe, I don't know if they got damaged in storage or if they were damaged during a recovery operation. Here looks like it would fly, and I just started to open a little bit, and you are correct, Jim. Apparently the engine that went in here, I'm assuming had the thrust coming out the bottom, obviously, and then some kind of kicker charge in the top that would blow into the rest of the tube, and then I guess this is what was supposed to happen here. Carefully packed parachute that the kicker charge was supposed to, blow the nose cone off the rocket, and then I assume the parachute came out for recovery. This is a question for an archivist, but some of this stuff here, it's all stuck together, and I started to try and peel it apart, and I can see I'm just going to destroy it in the process of peeling it apart. So I don't know if anybody has any recommendations for the best solvent to use. I might try a couple drops of water to start with to see if I can get any of these things apart. It might be kind of interesting to see what was in there. This is all just kind of stuck together. I don't know if it's mold or glue or what it is. But an interesting one that I'm assuming has no parachute. They call it the Mosquito, and it's got some mold or something on the back of the paint. But the front of this thing, I'm assuming you just shot this up, and then you just use drag of these large fins to bring it back down to Earth. Anyway, that's it for me, WU7N. I see it's 8:55. Dave?
7N, James. Yes, time is marching on. Let's go to Jim, N7QO.
N7QO. No clue as to what sort of solvent to use, Jim. Boy, I don't know. Pages stuck together like that. I've got... in the past, I've had some magazines that were sitting somewhere and they got wet and stuck together, and I just wound up throwing them in the trash. I'm sure that there are people out there, like you pointed out, some archivists or something who would be intimately familiar with what sort of products to use. Might actually be able to find something like that on Google as well, but I can't help you on that. I don't know, that's about all I've got. I'll say good night to everyone. Thank you for the pictures. Sorry you couldn't see me, and hope to. One other thing. Did anyone make it? Well, Dave, I know you didn't. Jim, did you make it to today's meeting? And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Dave, for now. N7QO.
N7QO. I don't know what happened at the meeting today, but anyway, I can inquire and find out what's happening. Somebody must have been get a hold of Bob and see what transpired during the meeting. Anyway, is there anything from anybody before we button up the net?
To answer Jim's question, I was at work today, so I was not able to make the meeting. WW7N73s, everybody.
Okay, with that, this is the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Net. We'd like to thank the owners of the 08 machine, the SeaTac repeater group, for allowing us to use that repeater for our voice channels for the Western Washington Amateur Television Society Nets, held on Wednesdays and Saturdays between 8 and 9 o'clock. So with that, I'll be signing off on behalf of the Western Washington Amateur Television Society at 2058. Good evening, all.
W7WWI N7QO.
W7WWI.
I found a phone number. I'm pretty sure I do not have it, but I was just curious. I would think that to send a donation, it would be sent to you, but it sounds like if funds are needed, send it to Rich.
Status yet, so I don't know what we need to do, so I need to hopefully I'll get a hold of him sometime this week and find out if we really need to fix to make the repeater work again, because it's very useful.
Okay, well, if you need some financial help as well, send out a message to the television club, and I can definitely make a donation to support the repeater as well. Good night, Gary, N7QO.
Thank you very much for your help, W7WWI, Olympia.
That Rich, that's you're talking about KF7BJI, is that correct? That was just a little bit too fast.
Yeah, that is correct.
Thank you very much. Good night, N7QO.
W7WWI, this is WU7N.
Go ahead.
First on the Cougar repeater, you got to push to talk and then give it like a full second, 1 second before it'll really pick up your transmission. Second thing, are you do you have an email account at arrl.org?
Email address, but it's the one I have. It's actually my wife's one, so I don't have anything else. But if you want that, I can give you that number.
Go ahead if you want to broadcast it.
Yeah, sure. It's Echo Mike Golf 91541 at hotmail.com. That's EMG Echo Mike Golf 91541 at hotmail.com.
So Mike Golf 91541 at hotmail.com.
You got it. Thank you very much.
And clear.